Thank you.
Merci beaucoup pour nous avoir choisi. As the book is in English, I think tonight we will carry on with English.
Yes, but
English-speaking people, French-speaking people, French.
Okay.
Among the French-speaking people, some of you don't speak English. Il y en a qui ne parlent pas anglais.
Yes, but not in Alliance Française.
Is there anybody who doesn't understand French? Nobody. Okay.
Il y a des gens qui ne comprennent pas l'anglais.
Pas très bien.
Ok, alors peut-être on va faire un peu comme d'habitude. Ok, ça marche. Ok. Alors, la première question, peut-être que je vais poser, c'est est-ce que ce livre est plutôt écrit, est-ce que tu as plutôt écrit ce livre pour les gens qui ne connaissent pas du tout, et ce serait une première approche de cette personnalité extraordinaire, ou est-ce que c'est plutôt un livre pour déjà des gens qui ont une connaissance de l'histoire de la mère de chez Robin? Est-ce que c'est
c'est plutôt pour les gens qui ne connaissent rien du tout. C'était justement le but de ce livre. J'ai vu qu'il y avait beaucoup de gens qui ne connaissaient absolument rien sur elle. Et il y avait une sorte de... les gens pensaient que s'ils ne suivaient pas sa philosophie, qu'on n'avait pas besoin de la connaître. Mais en fait, elle devrait être plutôt connue par tout le monde comme une personne historique et qui a beaucoup travaillé, qui a fait beaucoup pour Pondichéry, mais qui reste toujours tout à fait méconnue. Donc j'ai pensé justement d'écrire d'une façon facile, simple, pour que ce soit tout à fait facile à lire, facile à comprendre, justement pour les gens qui ne la connaissent pas du tout. Donc j'ai divisé les chapitres pour... je voulais que les personnes qui ne la connaissent pas comprennent qu'elle avait beaucoup d'activités et qu'elle a fait beaucoup de choses différentes. Donc j'ai des chapitres différents sur toutes les activités différentes. Par exemple, j'ai un chapitre où je parle de la mère comme artiste, parce qu'elle était artiste, comme écrivain, parce qu'elle a écrit beaucoup de livres, comme quelqu'un qui a travaillé dans le domaine de l'éducation, parce qu'elle a commencé une école et elle avait une philosophie d'éducation très très particulière. Et aussi à la fin, le fait qu'elle a commencé établie Orville comme une ville qui représentait l'unité humaine. Mais avant ça, j'ai parlé d'autres choses, de sa vie, de comment elle est arrivée à Pondichéry, comment elle est repartie d'ici, elle a vécu un peu au Japon, et puis elle est revenue, et tout ça. Il y a her life and her work. Je voulais insister sur ce fait qu'elle a beaucoup travaillé.
That leads perfectly to my second question, but in English.
Yes.
How did you manage to, as you just said, she is this multifaceted personality,
Yes.
from spirituality to art through education. How did you manage to make it like a cohesive weave? Did you add to, as you said, separate everything and just compartment everything, or did you manage to get a connection between all those aspects of her personality?
Well, actually, there is a chronological flow. So there is, in the beginning, I say about her life, her childhood, her growth, etc. And as I go along the book, I have added those parts which chronologically come later. But of course, things like her aspect as an artist actually started when she was a teenager, when she went to art school to learn art. So that comes earlier on, but I have put it a little later. And the fact that she wrote also, if you look at her collected works, there are quite a few things which she wrote earlier, before coming to Pondicherry, but I have added this chapter after, and so on. So the flow is there in the sense that in the first part of the book it's more or less chronological, and in the second part it's the separate aspects of her teaching, of her life, and it ends with Orville, which was at the end of her life.
So if I, not rephrase, but if I carry on with that, do you think her life a bit, if I dare to say, like Sri Aurobindo, who was more in the activism, political activism of the beginning, do you think the mother, her life is like that, like this chapter, going from one part of her life, let's say, art, then spirituality, or when you dug into her life, do you think it was all the time at the same moment? Or do you think there was first art, then spirituality?
No, actually this is the interesting thing. It's that generally people think, even those who know her, think that her spiritual life started after she came to Pondicherry and then etc. But it's not true. She started, her spiritual life actually started when she was very young, when she was a child even. She has written later on that when she was about 13 years old, she had this experience that she went out of her body into the very high above Paris where she lived, and that she had this this experience where she felt she had a very, very long robe, and all the people who were suffering, who needed help, would climb, she felt they were coming up to ask for her help. This is one of her earliest spiritual experience when she was only 13. She joined art school, and then whenever her parents told her, but you must do more of this, not her parents, her grandmother, she said, this is not the ultimate aim of my life, to be a great artist. It's just a means to an end. I'm learning art so that I can perfection myself, I can cultivate, I can have a refinement in my nature, it's to educate myself. But she always knew that there was something else she wanted to do. So what I'll do is I'll tell you a little bit about her life so that you know how the sequence happened. So I'll say a little bit in French and a little bit in English. En fait, elle est née à Paris, mais ses parents sont arrivés à Paris juste un an avant sa naissance. Donc, ce n'était pas une famille qui était déjà là en France depuis plusieurs générations. Ses parents sont arrivés de Alexandrie, Alexandria, in Egypt, et ils se sont installés juste un an avant sa naissance. Son frère, Matteo, était né en Alexandrie. Donc, c'est tout à fait un hasard que quand elle est née, juste quelques mois avant, la France a décidé que ceux qui sont nés en France seraient des citoyens français, qu'on aurait la nationalité française si on est né en France. Et donc, elle a dit plusieurs décennies plus tard, I'm French by birth and early education, but I'm Indian in my spirit. Donc, je ne savais pas jusque-là, j'ai découvert il y a une dizaine d'années qu'en fait, elle a eu la nationalité française parce qu'elle est née en France, mais que sa famille juste venait d'installer. Alors pourquoi est-ce que sa famille est venue en France? Déjà, c'est les oncles de la mère étaient arrivés avant. C'était une famille juive et ils ont commencé des banques parce que Paris était vraiment le centre commercial du monde à l'époque. Et à la fin du 19e siècle, qu'est-ce que je dis? Oui, 19e siècle, et que c'était plusieurs personnes de cette famille sont arrivées et ils ont commencé des banques. Et son père, qui s'appelait Mirra Alfassa, était aussi un banquier, mais qui a, quelques années plus tard, a perdu toute sa fortune, tout son argent. Et en fait, c'était sa grand-mère maternelle, qui s'appelait aussi Mirra Ismaïloun, qui a soutenu la famille financièrement. Mirra Ismaïloun venait d'une famille riche et donc elle a complètement pris en charge cette famille. Et c'était peut-être elle qui a voulu que Mirra Alfassa, sa petite fille, prenne des cours d'art dans l'Académie Julian. So the Académie Julian was an art school which was started by a gentleman called Julian. And it was an art school which was the only one at that time which was giving art lessons to women. All the French Fine Arts Academy only allowed men to learn, and only Académie Julian had a special school for girls, and that's where she joined and she learned to paint. Later, because already her family was going through a lot of financial difficulties, etc. So as soon as she finished her course at the age of 19 or so, she married Henri Morisset, who was also a student in the Académie Julian, who was also an artist. And so when they got married, she helped him with some of his art projects, but she also was an artist who evidently, at that time, women didn't exhibit. Women were not artists in their own name. Even the Académie Julian, which trained women for art, expected them not to have a career as an artist, but to become like portrait painters, to go to families and paint portraits, or to illustrate books, or to do decorations on things which were used for interior decoration, etc. Here I will stop and tell you that actually I went to the art school where the Académie Julian used to be, which has now become something else. It's a design school, and I went there and I wanted to ask them some questions. And the director was a bit busy, so the assistant director answered me. And he said that Académie Julian had 11 schools all over Paris, and the particular school which was for girls, it was in the 8th arrondissement, but the building had been demolished and another building was standing in its place. And he said also that one of the reasons why it was so famous was that it accepted foreign students, and they gave lessons in English to artists who came from America, from Italy, from England. They were the only school which gave art lessons in English. So he told me that school slowly got merged with another school, which is mainly now for design and graphic arts, but it is exactly in the same place. You can still see there is a arch over the gate which says Académie Julian. They have kept the name. They've kept a memory of that. About 10 years later, she divorced Henri Morisset, and she lived alone for a while, after which she married Pondichéry, who was not an artist, who had nothing to do with art. He wanted to come to, they started a group of spiritual seekers who met in her house, which was in the 15e arrondissement, in Rue du Val de Grâce. It's an area which is a bit inside like this. It's an area which it's like a gated house and place, and their house was absolutely at the end of that. They started a group in which there were a few, about 20 people who would meet every week in their house to discuss spiritual matters. Before this, she went to Algeria and she trained in spiritual practices with another spiritual, I won't say master, but he had mastered certain techniques, who is known as Max Théon. He lived in Tlemcen in Algeria, and she spent some months there learning particular techniques of the mind to have certain powers. And then when she came back to Paris, she started this group, some of whom were also interested in, who knew Max Théon. So her spiritual life actually started well. In fact, one of the reasons she separated from her first husband was because she was so much into this spiritual seeking and spiritual group, which he didn't approve of. So that's why she left him and she lived alone. And then she married Paul Richard. I will also make a small aside to say that if you know about Alexandra David-Nel, you will understand that Alexandra David-Nel was also part of this group, which met in their house. Alexandra David-Nel was a great explorer. She came to Pondicherry. She was the first European woman to enter Lhasa, Tibet, which was forbidden to outsiders. And she was a great Buddhist scholar. But they knew each other. She was also part of this group. So how did the mother come to Pondicherry? Paul Richard wanted to stand for elections from Pondicherry. And so in 1910, he came alone and just to prepare the ground. And while he was there, because he was already part of this spiritual group in Paris, he asked a few people, do you know of a yogi? Is there a real yogi here? I would like to meet a yogi. And so some people already knew. Just that year, a coincidence, just that year in 1910, Sri Aurobindo had come from Calcutta to Pondicherry, and he was living incognito. He did not want people to know that he was there, because he didn't want his identity to be known or his location to be known, because the British police was after him. He had already been for 1 year imprisoned and kept in solitary confinement. He had just come out of that, and he knew that the British police was trying to, he had come out, he had been declared innocent in this court case. But he knew that the British police would try to catch him again. So before that, he first went to Chandanagar, which was a French place, and from there he came to Pondicherry. So when Paul Richard came to Pondicherry, he was told that such a yogi is there, and he went and met him, he spoke to him, they had a long conversation, and then he went back to France, and they were in correspondence, and after 4 years, in 1914, he and the mother decided to come to Pondicherry to live here. Initially they thought they'd live for 2 years. They had come with that much money to be able to live for 2 years. But the First World War broke out, and they had to leave. So they went back to France, but they wanted to come back. In the meantime, they had got interested in the Indian independence movement. Then they went to, as they couldn't come back to Pondicherry, they went to Japan. From Japan, after 4 years in 1920, they came back to Pondicherry. At which point, in 1920, they against Paul Richard and the mother rented a house on just a road parallel to the sea beach, Saint Martin, and they were living there. And that's when, a few months later, Paul Richard decided to leave he didn't want to be a disciple of Sri Aurobindo. He wanted to be an equal, but he couldn't be. And that's when she decided that she wanted to continue to live in Pondicherry and be his follower. At which point he left and she was there. Then she was living in Rue Saint-Martin with a woman who had traveled with them all through Japan and who was also a spiritual seeker. And she was living with, these two ladies were living alone. And in November there was a cyclone, as it is quite often it used to happen. There was a cyclone, and Sri Aurobindo felt that that house where they were living was not very safe. So he asked his those who were living in the same house with him on François Martin Street to go and get these two ladies so that they could be in their house and they could be looked after. And once the mother and this Irish lady who was called Dorothy but who was given the name Datta, once they moved into this house where all the followers of Sri Aurobindo were living in one house, from that time on, she became a part of this group completely. And then later, you see this group which had come with Sri Aurobindo, they were actually freedom fighters. They were revolutionaries. They had been to the prison. They had, some of them had rigorous imprisonment. So from being a group of revolutionaries, they became a group of spiritual seekers. But of course the British police never believed this. They thought they were still revolutionaries. So slowly, it was in fact the mother who more or less organized this group. And in 1926, Sri Aurobindo had a very specific, special spiritual realization, after which he said, I will now not come out and meet everybody as he used to before that. And he said, from today onwards, the mother will look after the ashram. She is my equal. She is your spiritual teacher. And I'm just going to continue doing my spiritual seeking and my writing. She will handle the actual organization of this group. They did not say, come, let's start an ashram. They never said that. People naturally came and gathered around, and slowly this group grew and grew and grew until in 1926 it was formally created as an ashram and formally created as a group that would live together. And so from 1926 the ashram was formally founded. So in fact in a couple of years it will be the 100 years of the founding of the ashram. And from that time on she became the real organizer, the real person who guided everything, who took all the decisions of the material life as well as the spiritual life of this group, which grew and grew and grew. Then again another thing happened which completely changed the life of the ashram and her activities, and that was the Second World War. When the Second World War broke out, just before that, the mother had wanted to build a place where she could put all the people who were in this group. There were about 150 people at that time. So she wanted to build this building, which now we know as Golconda, which is just behind the ashram on Rue du Puy. She called an architect from Japan to build this building so that she could put everybody there. But hardly had they started the construction of this building to put all the 150 people there, that the Second World War broke out, and that changed everything, because a lot of people from Calcutta wrote to us saying, can we send our children for safety to Pondicherry, because Calcutta was going to be bombarded and we are afraid that these children might die. So in order to put them in a place of safety, we have said, can we send them to Pondicherry? She said yes. Of course she couldn't refuse. So these children came to Pondicherry thinking they will be there until the war is over and then they will go back. But as it happened, when they came, and there were about 20, 30 of them, she said, what can I do with these 20 or 30 children? I have to start teaching them, I have to look after them. The most important thing is that they have to have an education. So, in 1943, she took permission from the French governor and opened a school. You have to take permission from the French government. Pondicherry was part of French India. So she opened a school, which was on Rue Saint-Louis at that time. And with these 30 children, she started a school. With very little, she had very little money at that time, but with whatever little resource she had, she started it. And it was run exactly like a French school, with French books. Everything was taught in French. There was a class de 6e, 5e, première, etc. And as the children grew, they went to the next class, and the next class was started. But she said, all the subjects must be taught in French. And so all the teachers who were teaching had to learn French to teach. Because even maths, science, history, geography, everything was taught in French. So they had to learn French to teach French. And teachers were among, if taken from this group, from the ashram itself. And as the school grew and became bigger and bigger, naturally it developed more and more. There was a primary school, there was etc., etc. And ultimately, when the war was over, more families came, and finally, when Pondicherry became part of India, and this school kept changing. She kept changing the way it was functioning. But sometime in 1950, Sri Aurobindo passed away. And at that time, she thought that she would start a university. And in 51, she had a convention saying, I will start a university in his name. This is the best homage I can pay to him. So she wanted to start a university. There was a convention, everybody came. And in 1952, she bought another building, which is now the school of the ashram. That building she bought and moved the school from Rue Saint-Louis to that place, which is between Rue de la Marine and the one which is before, whatever it is. That house she bought, and she moved the school there, and slowly everything developed. But the university never happened. There were many reasons for which it didn't happen. So again she changed it and said, okay, it will be a school. And she called it the Center of Education, Sri Aurobindo International Center of Education. This name she chose in 1959, when she knew that it would not be a university. And she changed completely the way the school was run. So English and French were both there. She said history, geography can be taught in English, but maths and science, even today, are taught in French. And French is a subject as important as English. And she always said that French must remain in the school, because she said the French language is a language of clarity, and that's why it is best adapted to science and maths. And so even today, the school has some subjects in maths in French and some subjects in English. And so that school developed, and it reached up to graduation. At that time, in 1968, the school was already running and set up, etc. In 68, then she thought, the next step, she founded Auroville. She said there must be something more beyond this. And she said right at the beginning that this will be a place where we can realize human unity. This will be a place where we will try to make human unity a reality. Because this is the future. Human the whole human race will unite, will become one in peace, in happiness, in joy. And so we must start right away. And at that time, in 68, 69, it was really something extraordinary. One felt this was as if the world was really, it was really something new, fantastic, as if nothing was impossible anymore. And I'm saying this because I was there. I was here. And it was an extraordinary feeling that, the people from all over the world started coming. We met people coming from various countries. The foundation day of Auroville in February 1968, it was an extraordinary feeling because when she had asked that a boy and a girl from each country would come with earth from their country, and as a symbol of unity it would be put into this urn, which would symbolize the unity of the world. And it was extraordinary for us to see a boy and a girl come from various countries. We met children who were like us, but who were from another culture, another world. And we felt, yes, it is indeed, we are all fellow human beings. This is something natural, something wonderful. And so that was that. And then the extraordinary thing I realized is that when she founded Auroville, she was 90 years old. A person who thinks at age 90 that I'm going to start a city which will bring about human unity. I don't know how many people at age 90 are dreaming of a future. And there she was. She never said, oh, I'm too old, I'm going to sit back and relax. Never. She was 90 years old and she was the founder of this city. So she set an example. Whatever she was teaching, she was living it. She set an example to all of us that everything is possible. You can do whatever you want to do. There is nothing impossible. And the future is what we are aiming at. She continuously said, don't look back, look forward, look at the future. The past is finished. We can learn from the past, but our life is in the future. Always keep looking at the future. So that's our life.
Merci. D'ailleurs, si je ne me trompe pas, à Choc Panda, il m'a montré la maison où chez Robindo avait trouvé refuge. Elle est encore debout.
Oui.
Et on peut aller la voir. Est-ce qu'il y a Saikat dans la salle? Oui. One of mother's children. Après, n'est-ce pas, Saikat? Est-ce que vous pouvez venir un tout petit peu? Après, comme ça, on pourra avoir une petite discussion avec Saikat qui, lui, a fait partie des enfants qui ont été choisis par la mère, justement. Mais alors, avant d'aller sur ce témoignage à la fin, quand on fera une petite discussion informelle, mais merci Saikat, je voulais poser peut-être une question qui est peut-être un peu banale quand on fait une biographie, mais qui est toujours intéressante parce que les pairs ne sont jamais les mêmes entre l'auteur et le sujet. Juste avant peut-être, je vais réaliser le fantasme de beaucoup de gens qui vivent à Pondichéry quand on aimerait avoir un micro et demander à boire. Est-ce qu'on peut avoir un verre d'eau pour Sunayana? N'est-ce pas? Un verre d'eau? De l'eau?
You always have a glass of water
Oui.
when we have a...
Voilà, fantasme réalisé, j'aimerais tellement avoir un micro. Alors, ma question par rapport à ces éléments biographiques, c'est avant que tu écrives le livre, c'est une vaste question, mais qu'est-ce que la mère faisait dans ta vie? Comment elle t'a influencé? Comment tu en arrivais à écrire le livre? Et quand tu as plongé encore un peu plus, qu'est-ce qu'il y a d'autre que tu as découvert et qu'est-ce qu'il y a d'autre que tu n'avais pas encore vu peut-être?
Oui, parce que quand j'ai grandi ici et que j'ai été élève à l'école de l'Ashram, et ensuite j'ai décidé de rester à Pondichéry et de continuer ma vie ici pour être toujours en contact avec l'Ashram, et je participe beaucoup dans les activités, etc. Mais je me suis rendu compte, et c'est vrai, que dès que je suis sortie de Pondichéry pour voyager, ou une fois que je suis allée en France ou en Angleterre, le plus je m'éloignais de Pondichéry et de la Chambre, je me rendais compte à quel point elle nous avait, tout ce qu'elle nous avait donné, à quel point elle nous avait donné quelque chose de merveilleux. Parce que chaque fois que je m'éloignais, je pouvais voir les choses avec un recul de loin. Et j'ai comparé ma façon d'être ou ma façon de penser, qui avait été complètement influencée par l'éducation qu'elle avait donnée ou tout ce qu'elle avait écrit, par rapport aux autres. Quand je voyais que les gens, une fois un peu sortis de Pondichéry, quand j'allais dans le nord, et que je voyais que les gens avaient une idée assez stricte et formelle en ce qui concernait les hommes et les femmes. Par exemple, ils ne voient pas les hommes et les femmes comme des égaux, alors qu'on a grandi dans un endroit où on n'a jamais pensé que les hommes et les femmes étaient différents et qu'ils n'avaient pas un statut égal, pas du tout. On a toujours grandi et la mère disait toujours, il faut élever les enfants en leur disant que ce sont des êtres humains. Il ne faut pas tout le temps insister que c'est une fille et c'est un garçon. Qu'ils grandissent avec cette idée qu'on est tous des êtres humains et qu'on est tous pareils, tout à fait sur un niveau égal. Et donc quand je suis allée ailleurs en Inde et que je voyais que les hommes et les femmes n'étaient pas égaux, ça me choquait énormément. Ou alors que je voyais quand il y avait des gens parler des castes et des classes sociaux, tout ça, ça me choquait parce que nous étions élevés dans cette ambiance où on ne parlait pas des castes ou alors des religions différentes. On a toujours été élevés dans une ambiance où tout le monde était égal et qu'il n'y avait pas de différence, que ça n'avait aucune importance si on appartenait à une autre religion, qu'on appartenait à une classe sociale différente, etc. Ça, je me suis rendu compte une fois que je suis sortie, une fois que j'ai vu comment les gens vivaient ailleurs et que tout cela avait une telle importance dans leur vie alors que pour nous ça n'avait aucune importance. Et une fois que je suis sortie de l'Inde, j'ai pu voir encore une fois la façon dont je voyais les choses différemment et j'ai aussi pu voir tout ce qui était positif dans la culture indienne, etc. Et que comment on avait grandi avec une culture plutôt internationale, plutôt mondiale. Je ne me considérais pas comme indienne, je me considérais comme citoyenne du monde et que chaque culture, je pouvais accéder, je pouvais toucher n'importe quelle culture et elle serait la mienne. De penser je n'ai jamais pensé qu'une culture était inférieure ou supérieure à l'autre et que chaque culture était intéressante. D'ailleurs, quand Auroville a été fondée, juste il y a quelques années, en parlant avec Gilles, qui était l'archiviste à Auroville, il m'a dit, en fait, je crois que cette université qu'elle aurait voulu commencer et fonder, en fait, ça s'est transformé en Auroville, parce que c'est ici, tout ce qu'elle avait voulu faire avec l'université, c'est plus ou moins les mêmes idées qui se sont manifestées à Auroville, parce qu'elle disait que tout le monde doit apprendre tout sur toutes les cultures. Tout le monde doit s'intéresser aux cultures des autres. Et c'est comme ça qu'on saura qu'en fait, le monde est un et que il n'y a pas de division, il n'y a pas de séparation. Tout est un. Il suffit de s'intéresser à quelque chose et apprendre pour que ça devienne le vôtre.
Et alors, pour cette question à tiroir, est-ce que quand tu as fini d'écrire ce livre, il y a quelque chose qui t'a frappé en te disant tiens, j'avais pas ça en tête à propos de la mer? Exactement.
Donc, en fait, ça c'est la deuxième, c'est la second edition. Comment on dit?
Édition augmentée.
Oui. Donc, j'ai écrit Enlarged Second Edition parce que une fois que j'avais publié la première, j'ai entendu dire, comme ça, un jour, à certaines personnes, que la mère, comme elle était française, elle ne voulait pas que les Français s'en aillent de Pondichéry. Elle ne voulait pas que Pondichéry devienne indépendante, que Pondichéry fasse partie de l'Inde. Alors que ce n'était pas vrai du tout. Pas du tout. Donc je me demandais comment est-ce que cette idée fausse circule parmi certaines personnes, alors que elle avait tout fait c'est-à-dire elle travaillait silencieusement, elle était au courant de tout ce qui se passait. Et bien qu'elle ait gardé une très bonne relation avec les Français, le gouvernement français, surtout les gouverneurs, surtout François Parent, l'autre jour Jean-Marie nous a parlé, le fait qu'elle avait un rapport, elle avait des rapports d'amis avec d'autres Français, donc les autres pensaient qu'elle voulait qu'il reste. Alors que ce n'était pas vrai. Elle avait de bonnes relations avec tout le monde. Donc j'ai pensé, je vais ajouter un chapitre pour dire comment elle a influencé, comment elle a travaillé pour que Pondicherry devienne indépendant et que ça soit rattaché à l'Inde. Donc ça, c'est quelque chose que j'ai pensé plus tard. Et j'ai aussi écrit, j'ai ajouté quelque chose que François Baron aurait écrit sur elle. Et donc, c'est là dans le livre. Et j'ai pensé que les gens ne se rendent pas compte que Sri Aurobindo a lutté pour l'indépendance de l'Inde. Donc, il aurait certainement voulu que Pondichéry soit libre, mais il y avait cette idée fausse qui circulait et tout le monde, les locaux pensaient, les Pondichéryens pensaient que simplement parce que la mère avait une bonne relation avec le gouverneur français, elle ne voulait pas que les Français partent d'ici. Ce n'est pas vrai. Donc, j'ai ajouté ce chapitre. Voilà. Et je vais aussi dire que j'ai fait beaucoup de recherches. En fait, j'ai écrit les chapitres. Quelques chapitres ont été écrits il y a 10 ans. Quand on a peut-être toujours, une revue qui est la revue des anciens élèves de l'école de la Chambre. C'est notre Alumni Journal. Et pendant 20 ans, j'ai été la rédactrice. Donc, chaque fois qu'il nous manquait quelques pages, j'écrivais un article sur la mer. Et j'ai eu la possibilité, la chance d'aller à Paris pour d'autres choses, mais je profitais pour aller voir les maisons où elle a habité, les lieux qu'elle a fréquentés. Assez récemment, je suis allée voir l'Académie Julian, mais je suis allée voir la maison où elle est née, sur le boulevard Haussmann, etc. Même je suis allée au Japon, mon mari et moi, on est allés au Japon pour trouver la maison où elle a habité. La première fois, on n'a pas trouvé, mais la deuxième fois, oui. Mais on a plutôt essayé de trouver le contexte culturel dans lequel elle a vécu. Et donc, ça aussi, ça fait partie d'un chapitre. Et aussi, oui. Donc, j'ai aussi fait un peu de recherche pour trouver que, avant de commencer, avant d'établir, de créer cette philosophie de integral yoga, elle a en fait étudié toutes les différentes façons d'aller vers le divin, toutes les différentes religions. Elle a connu le bouddhisme, elle a étudié l'hindouisme, elle est née dans une famille juive, donc elle connaissait les traditions juives. Elle a étudié les Baha'i. C'est un groupe qui sort de l'islam, mais ce ne sont pas de vrais islamistes, mais les Baha'i font partie de ça. Elle a étudié le bouddhisme quand elle était au Japon, même avant. Donc, en ayant étudié toutes les différentes façons de chercher le divin, elle a fait le synthèse et ensuite elle a trouvé son propre chemin et après avec Sri Aurobindo ils ont fondé cette façon de vivre. C'est une philosophie et elle a dit maintenant le moment est arrivé d'aller au-delà des religions parce que l'époque des religions est finie, ça avait une importance dans le passé, mais maintenant il faut aller plus loin, il faut aller au-delà des religions et chercher à faire un lien avec le divin. Chaque individu peut trouver le divin lui-même et trouver sa façon, son chemin, et c'est ça. It's a perpetual self-perfectioning. You have to continuously perfection yourself until you go from one self-perfection to the next.
Je vais te poser l'avant-dernière question avant
Oui.
qu'on donne la parole à la salle.
Oui.
During the writing of the book, did you find an aspect or some aspects of her teaching that are overlooked or underappreciated?
Yes, of course, her method of education, most importantly. Even those who don't want to follow her philosophical path, those who don't want to follow her path of yoga, even for them, her method of education is extremely important. And I'm very happy to tell you that since a couple of years, this integral education is now part of those who study education, courses for teachers, courses for people who want to become teachers, who do this education, masters in education and bachelor in education. They have to study this system of education. It's part of their course now, the integral education. So this method of education which she pioneered is that you must educate the entire being. A human being is not only a body, it's not only a mind, it's much more than that. And she laid a lot of importance on educating the mind, the body, and your aesthetic being. It's very important to educate your aesthetic being, your emotional being. It's a whole education, and your spiritual being. And the more I look at India today, the more I say, my God, the one thing that is so important is to teach to every child the refinement of their being, the refinement of feelings, emotions, expressions. She was an aesthete. The mother said the beauty is a spiritual thing. You have to connect to beauty. Beauty of expression, beauty of a physical environment, beauty of thought. It must be part of you. And I feel more and more that this aspect of education, of refinement of senses, of teaching children to learn about aesthetics, about beauty in every part of their being is very important, and she laid such a stress on that. That is very important. So the way she laid importance on physical education, on sports, you must have a healthy body, a supple, strong body, which is the base of your life, is your body. You must give some importance to it. In the earlier traditions, people used to think you have to punish the body, you must not give any importance to the body so that you can give a lot of importance to your mind or to your spiritual quest. But she said, no, it's part of the same thing. Your body is your base. You must give a lot of importance to it. It must learn to be strong, supple, agile, healthy, etc., everything. So the way she has constructed her education system with sports, academics, arts, all the arts, she encouraged us to learn everything. In most cases, people say, if you want to be an artist, you must do only that and nothing else. But the mother said, no, you must do everything. You learn to paint, you learn to dance, you learn to sing, you learn musical instrument, you learn theater, everything. You should be able to do anything you want to do. A child must be given all the possibilities so that he can choose. How can I know that I'm an artist if I have not tried being an artist? If nobody has taught me how to paint or draw? Potentially I may be an artist, but until I am given that training, I will not know it. I may be potentially a musician, but until I'm given the opportunity to learn music, I cannot know if I'm really talented in that field. So in this way, many of us at that time, even now more so, all the students learn musical instruments, Indian instruments, Western instruments, Indian music, Western classical music, Indian dance, Western dance. I learned classical ballet for many, many years. And so theater, we did theater all the time. I mean, when there was no internet and there was no television, all we did was theater every evening. So she encouraged that, and she said, you must have a global opening to everything. So the way she encouraged us to develop artistic capacities, not because with the aim that I will become a great artist, or I'll become a great dancer, or I'll become a great actress, no. So that it is part of my being, so that I am a more complete human being, so that I can appreciate beauty when I see it, so that my mind is large and wide and deep for that reason. So this is an unknown side of her teaching that most people don't know. Her opening to beauty, aesthetics, and her idea of, her philosophy of integral education.
Et enfin, alors, sans aller sur le terrain politique, mais la mère serait ou est fière de l'ashram de Auroville. En ce moment, de quoi serait-elle le plus fière? De quoi est-elle le plus fière si elle pouvait voir maintenant l'ashram Auroville? Qu'est-ce qu'elle penserait? Qu'est-ce qu'elle pense?
C'est difficile à dire, mais au moins, je suis sûre qu'elle serait fière que l'école continue, que les élèves qui sortent de cette école font des vies assez intéressantes. Il y a beaucoup qui ont fait beaucoup de choses intéressantes dans leur domaine qu'ils ont choisi. Elle serait très fière de cette alumni qui est répandue partout dans le monde maintenant et qu'on continue de faire quelque chose de différent, de bien, et qu'on est toujours en contact, qu'on est toujours en contact avec l'ashram, avec Pondichéry. Qu'est-ce que je pourrais dire de plus? Et peut-être le fait que tout continue encore, ça aurait pu être complètement fini quelques années après qu'elle était partie. Voilà.
Merci beaucoup pour tout ça. Je pense qu'on peut applaudir Sunayana. Alors, juste le temps que vous rassembliez vos pensées, just the time for you to think about what's the next question you will ask. À l'Alliance, on voulait te donner un tout petit quelque chose pour te remercier de tous ces beaux moments que tu nous apportes encore ce soir. Alors, on a préparé un petit quelque chose, un tout petit quelque chose, mais voilà. Donc, Pondi Book Club, merci pour toutes ces belles rencontres, Sunayana. Vraiment, merci beaucoup. Alors là, je viens d'appeler tous ces beaux moments. Merci beaucoup pour ce que tu fais. Merci beaucoup pour avoir cette persistance et pour suivre les enseignements, définitivement nous faire partager la beauté et l'art. Merci beaucoup à toi.
If you have any questions.
Oui, bonsoir, merci. Oui, ça fait un peu suite à ce que vous avez dit à la fin sur ces élèves qui sortent de l'ashram et qui vont un peu partout dans le monde et puis qui continuent à rester connectés. Moi, j'aimerais savoir, puisque la mère en 68 a réussi à faire venir le monde entier à travers symboliquement une poignée de terre que chacun portait, est-ce qu'aujourd'hui vous pourriez évaluer ce qu'elle représente dans le monde? C'est-à-dire le monde est venu à Auroville, est venu à Pondichéry, et est-ce que la mère continue, elle, à aller dans le monde?
Oui, je pense que oui. Il y a de plus en plus de gens qui s'intéressent à elle. Vous voyez, elle, pendant qu'elle était en vie, elle ne se... elle restait très en arrière. Elle faisait son travail, mais elle ne cherchait pas à être connue dans le monde, etc. Mais elle disait que les gens vont venir vers moi, ils vont me trouver. Mais de plus en plus, il y a des gens qui s'intéressent, qui veulent savoir plus. Surtout parce que quand ils voient les personnes qui ont été influencées par elle, ils veulent savoir plus. Comment est-ce que vous avez eu cette éducation? Comment est-ce que vous êtes devenu qui vous êtes? Et donc, souvent, par ce biais, ils cherchent à la connaître. Et puis, grâce à Auroville aussi. Chaque fois que les gens me demandent qu'est-ce que vous pouvez faire pour le monde, et je dis on peut être qui on est, soyons qui nous sommes, et ça déjà c'est quelque chose. Ça va éparpiller cette ambiance qui va, juste en étant qui nous sommes, on peut changer de vie.
Bonsoir.
Yes, hello Rita.
Hi. First of all, thank you for the beautiful talk. I was completely mesmerized. I'm a student of the ashram. I grew up here, and like you said, I'm back here to roost. This is home for me now, which itself, speaks to what you were saying earlier. That's one. There's so much that has been written about the mother. There are books and there are conversations and there are questions and answers. My question to you is twofold. One is, you've written this book. What compelled you to bring this book together? Is it a very personal account, or is it, are these chapitres, are they a collection, like you said, chronologically you've written them? Is it another book which lays bare some of the things that have not been written about, or is it your personal account, Sunayana? Can I ask you?
It's not really a personal account, but the point of view is a personal one. My point of view, when something is written, sometimes books are written about the mother, but it is kept very like an observer from outside. The way I have written it, it's the way someone is speaking from the inside, from someone who knows it from the inside. So that when I explain the education, or when I explain mother's writing, or when I explain her art, or when I explain her seeking of different paths, of course it passes through my own interpretation of it. And I wanted it to be so simple, as if somebody is telling you a story, as if somebody is talking to you, so that it doesn't, people feel that, oh, it must be too difficult, I won't understand anything, oh, it must be very high in philosophy. But I wanted to write a book for the man in the street, for whom it would be easy to understand. And if it is told by somebody who is talking of it as an insider, as somebody who knows it personally, not as somebody who has stood outside and observed, but who knows it from the inside, it would resonate more, and it would be easier to understand the inside part of it. And yes, it is a collection of chapters. It's a chapter, then a chapter, then a chapter. A mother in Japan, I have written a little bit about also Paris, the various places where she lived, mother's life in Paris, and so on. So they are separate chapters each. It's not one long story. They are different chapters, but it is like that.
Donc, si vous avez d'autres questions, ce sera de manière un tout petit peu informelle à la fin. Néanmoins, je voulais vous rappeler que le livre est ici. Si vous voulez un autographe, c'est le moment. Donc 350, c'est ça, c'est ce que je regardais tout de suite.
Mais aujourd'hui, c'est pour 300 roupies. And there is a discounted price of 300
rupees, because if you come to a book launch, you should get a book at a discounted price. So the book is available there. Also, the book is available at Focus and at Casablanca Boutique. These are the two places where you can buy them. In fact, it is distributed through Sabda, which sends books all over the world. So through their website, one can even order them outside Pondicherry, outside India.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. On peut encore applaudir Sunayana. Merci beaucoup. Dépêchez-vous parce que moi je vais en prendre pour la médiathèque, pour l'antenne de SBV. Donc dépêchez-vous, sinon nous on va tout prendre.